the one thing about acceptance is that you have to take responsibility for yourself.
Right, there you are.
That is the huge part of acceptance.
Hi, my name is Frank Schaeffer, and this is a podcast and also a live Facebook event called In Conversation with Frank Schaeffer. And we do this live. It's also recorded, and then it goes out as a podcast on all the places where podcasts are listened to. And if you like this podcast, please like it in the interweb sense as well. Like it and tell people about it. Today is part 2 with a friend of mine, Elizabeth Hamilton-Guarino, who is the author of the Change Guidebook, which I have a copy here. And we, this is part 2 because we had such a good conversation last time. We decided together that we needed to talk some more. So we will be diving back into the content of her book and all the interests that we both have on family dynamics and work-life relationships and all the rest of it. You know, one thing I wanted to mention, Elizabeth, before we get going today is congratulations on, as I understand it, the relaunch of the Best Ever You magazine. Am I speaking correctly? Is something going on with that?
We're about to relaunch the magazine. We're busy working in the background and hope to have it relaunched by about May 15th.
Good.
So I had a magazine for years and years, and then got just kind of busy, and magazines were really hard to distribute. And the technology's kind of caught up so that now you can actually print the magazine on demand if you want to have a copy of it, which I think is very clever.
So do you kind of, these days, do you distribute through some other organization, like for instance, is Amazon printing your magazine on demand, or how do you do it? How's that work?
We're using a platform called MagCloud, I think, is what we're going to end up using. I'm learning. There's people helping me in the background, so I might not be the most intelligent to talk about all the technology. But I've got a vision for the different covers.
Right.
We tend to alternate men and women on our covers. We're going to start out with Ed Begley Jr. and kind of go from there. And it can be any one of, we've featured all sorts of people from anywhere. And that's what I love about it, is it's all about keeping everything real, like real places, real people, real products, just keeping everything real. And when I had the magazine before, we had contributors from everywhere. So if people want to write an article or be featured in it or be promoted, whatever. And then the other thing that I do is, I think advertising in magazines is unaffordable. And so I usually keep the magazine ads, like full page ad, to like $200, $250 to keep it completely affordable.
That's great.
Do
you have both an online version and there'll be this print version as well?
Yes.
So
yes.
do people subscribe to the whole thing? Like they get the print version automatically and then they also can download the online, or can they go just for the online, or how do you run that?
So the other way around, people are going to subscribe to it and you'll get the electronic version.
Yeah.
And then if you want to, you can have a copy mailed to you in the mail.
That's great.
And it's not, I think the thing about it is, when I was trying to print before, it was so expensive to run a print run.
Sure.
But then confusing as to how to distribute unless a big distributor picked you up, which so I was putting it in places for free
to
pick up. And then I learned, like, even the free places charge you to have your stuff in the free stands. So I was like, what a mess. So I love the fact that you can have it electronically and then people can print it on demand and actually have the magazine if they want.
Yeah. Does the content of when you relaunch the Best Ever You magazine, I've just been going through the Change book here. It's the Change Guidebook, and looking at all the work sections and the stories. And I like the way you have, there's it's a workbook in some places, so pages look like that.
Yeah.
But then also you have it interspersed with what you're saying. You have stories about other people and by other people. So, it has a sort of a magazine quality to it, in the sense that it pulls you through. It's very easy to read because everything is kind of article length in here.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I do. And I think that's the heart of me. I'm a journalist. I'm a trained journalist. And I think that's what I started out wanting to do, was news anchoring. And I quickly found that I didn't like the news that much. It was so negative.
Yeah.
And so it left me kind of wondering what to do. And as I think what I do compared to the news is feature really super positive stories, or stories that maybe were negative in the first place, but have turned out a certain way, or people have persevered, or all through it. So I love those turnaround type stories too. But yeah, everything in here, I remain fascinated by other people, and so it warms my heart that people contributed. And I hope if I get an opportunity to write another book,
Yes,
that you will do that. You'll
Sure, I'll
contribute a
contribute.
story. Please,
Yeah.
please, please. Because I didn't know you when I was doing this.
Yeah, no,
very well. Now I
we
do.
sort of met just after I finished my book and you
Yeah.
finished yours, and they came out sort of at the same time, but too late for either one to pay attention to the other in our books, although we were paying attention to each other's writing and thinking. Outside of that, is there much of a crossover from whomever was either subscribing or reading the Best Ever You magazine before? What's the gap between when you had it before and now?
Probably about, I want to say like maybe 5, 6, 7 years, somewhere around there.
Okay.
So I had it for a while, and then just haven't had it for a while.
Yeah.
And I think what frustrated me again was the technology, and now I've discovered the technology has changed.
Yeah. How often will it come out now?
I'm noodling, I think quarterly.
Quarterly, yeah.
They're hard to put out without typos and things.
Yes.
I might just do you find a typo, you get entered in a drawing.
If it was a printed form only, when you get it in the mail, how big a magazine is it? Just thinking in printed form.
Probably 50 to 80 pages or more. As we get going, it may end up being a little bit
So
more.
what's that like in terms of trim size? Talk about, is it the Atlantic or the New Yorker? What's it look like?
Just like a regular magazine, just like.
Yeah, but I mean,
pick up on
like sort of Time Magazine, Newsweek, the Atlantic, New Yorker, the print versions of those.
Yeah, exactly that size.
Yeah.
And a little bit glossier.
Mhm.
Kind of like there's a magazine out there called the Eden magazine.
Yeah.
I think we're going to kind of follow that one a little bit. Because that's really where I wrote an article for their magazine, and I was like, oh, I'd like a copy of this. And so I have the whole magazine here, and I'm like, oh, this technology is amazing.
Yeah.
And that's really where I kind of, it's really what made the magazine possible again, was
And are you doing all the
magazine.
Do you have, you were saying you have some other people who know more about it, who are working with you on various parts, but are you doing the editorial?
I think we'll have help on that too.
I mean, you're editing it, or you're writing for it, or you're just sort of masterminding the whole thing?
I think I'm kind of more the vision for it, like I'm creating the vision for it, and the structure for it, and then somebody else will make sure that it's edited properly and so forth.
Yeah,
we'll get the general gist in there. But we take, one of the cool things is, if you're a member of the Best Ever You network, we take the articles for the magazine from the website.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So if you contribute an article to the website, it'll be considered for the magazine. We've always done that.
Last time, we got so into such a lovely conversation about each other's families and our past and your books and my books, that I sort of forgot to do the regular interviewee stuff. So let me get back to the kind of some actual questions of the kind that delve into what you're doing, because for anybody who's watching this part 2 of my conversation with Elizabeth, I would just urge you to also watch the first part, because you'll get to know both of us a lot better, because I want to sort of do more nuts and bolts here. Talk about the Best Ever You, not magazine, but network. How many people are involved? What sort of things are you doing? And how does that relate to your Change Guidebook? Because I'm presuming that this came out of that, in that this is a result of not, as I look through the Change Guidebook, it doesn't seem to be written in the abstract. It's as if, okay, these are questions you deal with all the time, and now you're putting them in this form.
Yeah.
I'm just guessing that the Best Ever You network was the kind of, the ground from which this came or grew. And I want you to talk a little bit about the Best Ever You network and how many people are involved in what you do and the kind of ideas you're pushing, and then how that relates to the guidebook here.
So to go back to the start of the Best Ever You network, just to take us there for a second, when our little one went into first grade, I thought, okay, I'm going to go get a job and go back into the financial services industry. And I quickly decided that was not what I was going to do. After about a year, I was like, okay, I'm not doing this. And I wrote down, there's got to be something better than this. Best ever me, best ever you, best, under that kind of theory. And opened my door back up and quit my job, came home and walked up the street to a neighbor who knew websites and design. And we registered the Best Ever You network. So it's besteveryou.com. And it quickly developed into something that I could do from home with the kids. The kids have been raised with Best Ever You and #gratitude on the refrigerator and all these things. And
when was that? When did you start it? Just give me a kind of a date.
2008.
Okay, 2008.
2008.
Yeah. So this kid, quote unquote, is now quite grown up.
Yeah, they're in their 20s.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, they're totally in their 20s, graduating from college or in master's degrees and doing all that good stuff. And but they've been raised with Best Ever You. They've worked on it. They've thought of words of the year. Like one of them was like, the word of the year, Mom, is collaboration. The word, they've been involved. And so I think what Best Ever You is kind of, what isn't it? Is maybe the better way to define it, because it's what we make of it, and it changes all the time. It's outgrown any business plan I've ever even thought of. It's intended to be multimedia, personal and professional self-help materials across the globe. That's its mission. But how we deliver those materials is ever evolving. It's just constantly changing. And so I'm finding is the group that absorbs the materials. So we always have an audience that is 50-50, half male, half female. And then the ages are all the way up from, 85 and older to, teenagers in high school or even middle schoolers.
Between when you started it in 2008 and now, if people run across my stuff, it's in bookstores or they watch a video I've done on Facebook or on YouTube, or they see me on TV, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
But you've got something different going, because the Best Ever You network is a thing. So are they getting this through other people's platforms, or are they all coming to your site? And if so, how many people are involved? Like, I have X number of followers. I love that word follower, because I'm not sure any of them actually follow me. But they sort of show up. But I'm just wondering, how big is the Best Ever You thing?
Network. Yeah, it's a couple, several thousand people online in the network. So there's thousands of people in the network that are actually members of Best Ever You, and then it's kind of scatters from there into the different social media platforms.
When you say members, what do you mean?
Like they've actually joined and they're members of the network. So
which means what when they join?
We have their email. They're a member of our network, meaning they have a page on the site with it almost works like Facebook.
Yes.
Only it's the Best Ever You network. And it's a network of people who either contribute to the site or use the site. And it's a pretty cool network because we collaborate a lot together. The people in it are starting to know each other. That's what I think is really cool about this. The people.
So it's a kind of an online community as well.
Yeah, it's a huge online community. And then over on Facebook, we have about 4,000 people in a community. And then my Facebook page has like 14,000. I know you have a lot more. You've got like 250,000 people. So we need some of your people over to our community. But
yeah, well, they're watching this, and we're going to put links everywhere to click.
But yeah, so it's growing. It's continued to grow, and it's almost like a boutique little network of people that all look after each other. That's the best way I can really describe it. We've written books together. We've been on each other's podcasts, kind of like this. You just take care of one another. And it's a group where you could say, hey, I need some help in our community, and people will show up for you. It's really neat. And
so typically the kind of subjects you're doing, when people go there, are they watching you talk in a video? Are you presenting things? Are they downloading articles? Are they chatting back and forth with each other like Facebook, all that stuff, putting posts up?
Yeah, all of that, any way that people get information. And then as far as I'm concerned, I'm a master life coach. So people can actually hire me to train them to be a life coach, or I will do life coaching one-on-one or in group settings or corporate settings with people. But it's sort of morphed into me training people to become life coaches, because I've been a life coach for a while. So I'm one of the people in the country who can, certify people to become life coaches. They go through my class, and then they're their own life coach.
Do you find, given our past conversations, again, I urge people and just say, hey, this is part 2 with Elizabeth. We got into a lot of good personal stuff in the first part, but which we're not going to repeat here. But that said, the connection between some of the writing I've been doing and you is that we both, I think, write out of our own experiences of what means most to us. It's very, it is not just business, it's personal with what we write about. My point of departure on my last book being full-time care for my grandchildren, your point of departure being your marriage relationship, your children, being a mother, but at the same time an entrepreneur, and how that all balances out. What would be the typical kind of person who is part of the Best Ever You network? Like when I think about you, I'm thinking of someone I relate to, first of all, as a fellow parent. I mean, if I had to pick one thing, it's like we both get that. Or, someone who's worked at making their marriage work or relationships work, or struggled to balance work and the rest of life and not put career, title, and money ahead of everything else. So, I know exactly how I'm connected to you and how our work connects. What would you say is the most common denominator between the people you're reaching on the Best Ever You network, but also the kind of folks who are showing up to you wanting your brand of life coaching? Because you have a certain brand. Not everybody says exactly the same things. What's the common denominator?
So it's interesting. It's everything you just said, but I find people meet us when they need, this is why I wrote the 2 books on change now, when they need to make a change. And something is going on in their life, and it's foggy or unclear as to what to do next, or they're at a certain level and they want to sustain that level, like a world-class level of something, and they want to keep that going. But often it's people meet the Best Ever You network when they're trying to achieve or change. And we see it over and over and over again.
Right.
I'd like to change my job, but I don't know really how, because I've got
and then this comes out of this. That's why exactly this is called the Change Guidebook, because you want to change. Then you read this book and figure it out. But someone might describe a lot of my folks. You're mentioning that I have a number of followers on Facebook and so forth. A lot of them share with me a spiritual journey of change, which ties in with yours, out of some sort of fundamentalist background of belief, whether that's evangelical, Orthodox, Jewish, Roman Catholic, whatever, to a position of being less certain about past certainties and embracing paradox and putting relationships ahead of things that build barriers. That would kind of be a rough way to describe a lot of the people that I'm in touch with. We have something that ties us together, a kind of a basic interest of a journey from point 1 to point 2 and beyond. What ties your people to you?
I think I'm developing that, but I think a lot of it is what you say is kind of my lifestyle. I think a lot of people watch our family and our kids and my husband and our pets. Our dogs are really popular. I think what ties us all together is that spirit of love. And compassion for other people, and kindness, and the principles, the basic principles that Best Ever You stands for, which is just to truly embrace people, and with grace and kind and compassion. And those are the people that we have in the network. If you really start to look at who our members are, and go, okay, Dave Strauss and Sally Huss and all these people, they all have that common thread of just incredible kindness. They'd help you before maybe they'd even help themselves sometimes. And I find that. But I remember when I started to write this book, and I put a note out to the group, and I said, I'm going to need contributors for this. The vision is like, you guys send me stories and stuff like that. And it was like, yes. It was crazy cool. The yeses and the lack of hesitation. I think that's the other thing too, lack of hesitation to trust. a super trusted place and space. And I've worked really hard to do that. Like even on the website, you'll see there's no advertising. Like
Yes.
there's no Google ads on everything.
Yeah.
There's no, we don't just let anybody post anything and sell anything and do all those things. So you can go on there and trust the content.
Yeah. And by the way, for folks who are watching this, whether you've seen part 1 or part 2, as I mentioned in part 1, everything to get in touch with Elizabeth or find her book or whatever, Ernie, my redoubtable producer, is going to post links to everything, so you don't have to be trying to remember anything we say about links. It's all, anywhere this is, you'll be able to link to Elizabeth and to her magazine and to the Best Ever You network. I called it a thing a minute ago and you said no network, but no, I know it's a network, but I'm hoping it also becomes a thing.
Yeah,
that word. Yeah, you want it to be a thing. Okay,
Yeah.
like love is a thing, death is a thing, and you want the Best Ever You network to be a thing.
Yeah, we do. It's hard to get things to be a thing too, for everything to catch on and so forth. And quite frankly, I've really enjoyed the size it is now. It's manageable. It just has helped a lot of people. I don't know. It just seems like people are in the network and they're achieving dreams, goals, so forth. And we're helping them do that. It makes me smile when I see people like Dave Strauss. He said to me a few years back, I'd like to be a children's book author like you. I'm like, well, let's do it.
Yeah, that's great.
And he's got kids books. He's got like 4 kids books out now.
That's great.
And so we connect. People put goals out and then people show up to help people achieve the goals or say they know somebody who can help or whatever. And I think I've always thought that, like, I always want to know how people do what they do. How do you become a New York Times bestseller? How do you produce that movie? How do you care for kids and keep it all together? And, I always want to know the how.
Yeah.
And I love it when I don't think we as a person, just ourselves, have all those answers, and we need to rely on many people to fill in those knowledge gaps, because I know I don't know everything. I don't know where I'd be without other people.
Yes, no, I feel exactly the same. I'm just as we go forward, let me reintroduce the subject here. This is In Conversation with Frank Schaeffer, which is a podcast and a live Facebook event available where all those things are available, or where huge organizations over which I have no control have algorithms that for a moment give me a tiny little opportunity to communicate before they change it all up again, and you disappear for a year because you haven't done something or other, or you've done whatever in this weird online world we're all in. But Elizabeth Hamilton-Guarino, do you say Guarino?
Guarino, yeah.
Yeah.
You got it right.
I'm always calling you Elizabeth.
It's just Elizabeth.
Maybe twice in my lifetime. Yes, has this book, The Change Guidebook. We are talking about it today. And we have talked before, and now this is our second conversation. I want to go somewhere else a little bit in the conversation to something broader. And it seems to me the context where I'm writing a book about work-life balance, which we've talked about before, Fall in Love, Have Children, Stay Put, Save the Planet, Be Happy, and your book, The Change Guidebook, How to Align Your Heart, Truths, and Energy to Find Success in All Areas of Your Life. The kind of deep backdrop to both of these books, you talk a lot about being positive about things, but the fact of the matter is the deep background of the work you're doing right now is an enormous, inconsolable well of loneliness in our culture, which all the statistics show. Huge groups of people are less and less happy for many, many reasons that you and I touch on, I guess, in our work, particularly youth. When you look at the statistics of teen suicide and eating disorders, self-harming, and these teens that all talk about their loneliness and all the issues with gender identity and everything else that teens are now dealing with in a very hostile environment often. You're a very positive person, Elizabeth, and this isn't, I'm not putting, words or thoughts out that claiming to be yours, but from my point of view, I'm pushing 70 years old, and I have not seen a period of my lifetime where I don't know how to put this, but where if you're starting out and if you're a younger person or with a younger family, I just think it's a terrifically difficult time.
Yeah, I do too.
So we're not, you're not doing the Best Ever You magazine and network into a vacuum. You're doing it into what I consider a moment of crisis.
Yeah.
And I don't know how I'm just throwing that out at you. I'm not telling you need to agree with it, but I would like to just say that.
That is exactly why I brought the magazine back. Why I'm trying to do everything I can do to get information out there. So I agree with you. I think we're in a definite moment of crisis, a moment of. I'm with you. I don't know how to articulate it as well as you do, but you can feel it. I think you can definitely feel, and if you're a parent of anybody in their 20s right now, you see it.
Yeah.
They're living at home. They can't afford a house. They definitely can't afford just interesting things, car payments, the student loan debt. There's so many things that the kids are straddled with. And I remember having, I was thinking about this. I remember having rent. I remember having car insurance. I remember having a student loan debt. I remember all those things, but it was not that comfortable. It was a struggle and not that affordable. It wasn't like I was, super wealthy and having all those things or anything like that. But now it seems like when you, if you take our 26-year-old and just kind of look at what he's got going on, it's tricky to find a house that you can afford.
Yeah. Yeah.
It
And,
really is.
I talk about people having families and so forth. And as I point out with my book title, I'm not just talking about having your own children. I'm talking about the idea that we're all caregivers, which is something you and I have discussed a lot. And you certainly are a caregiver with the Change Guidebook in terms of caring for others and reaching out. But, there's a sort of a basic disorientation or disconnect. I've never felt myself, maybe this is a delusional statement coming from a man who'll be 70 in August.
Probably not.
I've never felt myself cut off from any generation experientially. It's like I've recognized, okay, you're going through something I went through. Now I can't say that. Yeah. The generation that's coming along now, and I'll just give you one example, and I'm not being facetious or flippant about this. I never would have thought that I'd live to a time when, I come out of the 60s, okay? Yep. I never thought that I would see a time when there are serious articles in serious journals of psychology, as well as the serious end of the popular press, like the New York Times, on the fact that young people today are having less sexual experiences than ever because they've been turned off to the entire dynamic of romantic relationships. They don't know whether they should be hooking up or falling in love or just waiting until you're done college because no one can get a job anyway. And then when it gets to having babies, people pushing 40, trying to decide whether they want a child, but is this the right time?
It's not like it was when I was
put it. It would be as if you were in a period of history where there were serious articles saying, there's a huge chunk of the population that has forgotten how to breathe. Yeah. They're dropping where they stand because they don't know that you take a breath. And things that I grew up thinking are automatic. Fall in love, have children, or at least have sex. I'm not talking about heterosexual, gay, non-binary, just the idea that, we're sexual beings. There's a whole generation now that, in a sense, seems increasingly unsure to even take first steps in areas that I always thought, well, that's just what it means to be human. Of course, it's a no-brainer. And I want to talk to you about this because I think you're a good observer of human nature. Help me define what I'm trying to get at here. I don't know if I've put it correctly.
Well, I think you have put it correctly. And I think to add to it, again, we're generalizing a little bit too, we're not speaking for every single person out there. Yeah. But we have conversations in our household because I have scientists in our house, remember? Yeah. I have environmental science.
Living in the basement, right?
Yeah, I have a meteorologist, a geoscience master's degree happening in the basement. I've got an environmental science master's degree happening in Connecticut. Yeah. I've got a biochemical engineering, blah, 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 doctor happening in RIT. And we have a son who's got a job already and all this stuff with a girlfriend who has a son. And they have discussions that say, I don't even know if our planet's going to survive.
Yes, right.
They have some serious debates in our house.
Sure, no, I know.
Climate change and I'm just sitting here going, wow, this is heavy. I'm like, it's Thanksgiving, guys, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But they're together and they're talking, and there's deep concern about just about everything that was sort of, I don't want to say autopilot, but just kind of like things we took for granted, things we sort of did, that kind of thing. They're stopping and thinking about what they're doing, and with a long-term, I don't know if I've put it the best way either, but
No, I agree. And
there's some
then,
long-term concern going on in our household for sure. As they study the water and study the oceans and study the climate and study the this and the that and another thing. And then also, I am online because I have a career online and a book and all these things online. But I have 4 kids who don't like to be online, and they're very turned off to people who flaunt online and all that good stuff and so forth. They're there, they're online and so forth, but they're not posting everything about themselves all the time.
right.
And it's hard to navigate the waters younger. I can see why. I don't think I would want to be a teenager with the online stuff we have right now.
No, not at all. And when
I got bullied enough as it is.
Yeah. And then, when you get what you're talking about as well, when you get out into the billionaire class building their own spaceports and so forth, here are people in a way who have they're taking their billions, and instead of investing in the planet, as it were, they're essentially building an escape module, philosophically, if not literally, as in, we've got to go somewhere else because this is failing. We annihilation of various species, we may be next. And, we're going to have to go to another planet and double our chances. I mean, this is very apocalyptic kind of a talk, and it might be people on various sorts of dysfunctional spectrums who are emotionally unable to process stuff, but very clever at business. But nevertheless, it's in the air. Yeah,
it's definitely in the air. Changes in the air for sure.
Yeah.
I've seen that like 4 or 5 times today. People posting changes in the air, what's changing in your life, what's happening in your life, and so forth. But it pains me to see some of the things that are happening in the youth and with families, and it's difficult. And I'm not sure it might be people are making choices based on just what they can handle.
Yeah, and I think I mean, my generation, the boomer generation, you're a little bit younger, but nevertheless, you kind of get it. It did not leave a very careful or good legacy in a lot of areas. I think, we left a sort of steaming pile of crap for people to build on, and so many things. I
kids say that too. They're like, thanks, you guys.
Yeah, this is totally off the subject, but
it's okay.
The action never matched the idealism. If you watch, they redid the film of Woodstock, the big rock festival. And when you look at the re-release and the re-edit of that film, they made
I have to watch that.
You watch that, right? They put more about the aftermath. And I just remember this sort of image that's always stuck for me as a kind of a metaphor for an entire generation's failure in a way. And I'm talking about my own, so I can be harsh.
Yeah.
They left the area the festival was in, which was all about idealism and, peace on earth, and, it was going to solve all these problems. And yet literally the entire field that they left behind was at least 2.5 feet deep in trash.
Yeah.
And nobody cleaned up nothing. And it took weeks and weeks and weeks of people coming in and volunteering, trying to clean up the mess. So that just very much in my mind, there's everything happening on the stage. There's the rock stars arriving in helicopters. So they just sort of come in and go out in their own universe, spouting idealism, but with no connection to the ground at all. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, just a very short time later, you have Altamont, and the Rolling Stones have hired the Hells Angels to patrol it for them, and they wind up killing some people. Wow. And I just think the disconnect between the 60s and 70s official idealism and what actually followed in its wake in terms of follow-up. And I think it has a lot to do with family breakup, sexuality. It has a lot to do with the environment. But, there's no question to me that in a longer period of history that will go by, my generation is not going to be looked at very favorably, because we knew how to break a lot of stuff. We were good disruptors.
I don't like that word.
I don't either. I hate
That's-
disruption.
hate-
I think it sucks. And I hate all the tech people that use it too. Sorry, everybody hates the wrong
Sorry,
word
everybody.
to use. But I just think it's so stupip and juvenile and sophomoric.
I wrote a book on change and I don't like the word disruption. And I crack.
Well, and you know, as a parent, I mean, we both, I'm a parent and grandparent, you're a parent. I mean, what's the last thing any parent and person responsible for anybody are trying to take care of them is disruption. I mean, you want continuity and you want accountability. Okay, so anyway, what I'm trying to say is, what do you think about this generational? I went on too long.
Which generation though?
This whole thing of this generational legacy of the 60s and 70s and how it's now playing out, whether it's global warming or anything else. I just think we handed the next generation a shit sandwich.
Yeah. Well, I was born in 1969.
Yeah.
So I feel like I know the 80s a little bit better and the 90s a little bit better than I do like the 60s and the 70s so much, because I'm like in my kid age in the 70s playing on my swing set kind of thing. But if I look at kind of where we are now, I don't know if I'm totally qualified to like talk about all that stuff, but does it feel like there's a mess brewing? It feels like there's a lot going on. I mean, it really does. It feels like there's a lot of a lot going on, a lot of talk. And I'm more of like, yeah, we can talk and there's a lot going on, but I love action.
Yeah.
And not the action that takes forever to get stuff done. I mean, if you see trash, pick it up.
Yes.
It's really not that hard. If you see a person struggling, help them. If you know, there's a lot of action that you can take to not leave a pile of crap for people anywhere. But I think it starts with us. And if it starts right here in this moment, great. If it started for you a couple of weeks ago, or if you've already realized this or whatever, but we have to talk about each other, and we have to talk about the planet. We have to talk about all of these things, because there is a legacy that you leave. And I think that's what I think about that a lot, having nearly lost my life a couple times. I'm like, is this how I want to go out? And yeah, it would have been all right, but no, I would have wanted to do other things. And like I think about even just recycling.
Yes.
I mean, we recycle so crazy. And then for my husband wanted for his birthday last year, a composting station. I'm like, all right, there you go. Here you go. But just things like that, that we're starting to do. You see people making an effort. It's just kind of what effort. I wish it would be an effort that didn't just have to catch on and be popular. Yeah. Catch on in those ways that make things go, if, I don't know. If that makes sense.
Let me go back to something you said in the last interview we did together, part one of this. You brought up a line that my producer Ernie singled out and said, make sure you ask her about this again today. And it stuck with me too. I might have done this all by myself without a producer. Just saying, Ernie, I might have thought of this.
I love you, Ernie.
Maybe not. And he said, let's go back to that line we love of yours where you say, I'm not afraid to cancel. And that stuck with us. Explain that a little bit.
Well, in terms of, I think I can't remember the context we were talking about, but like if it's scheduling, I think is what
if something bigger happens, it's important. And you call up Ernie and you say, I'm not talking to Frank today because my kid has a problem and I'm doing that. That's my priority. Yeah,
I am not afraid to cancel. And in fact, this past week, I had terrible bronchitis. After we last spoke, between then and now, I had bronchitis, and so did my husband, and everything got canceled for the past 10 days. And people were not happy. I'm like, I'm so sorry. But up until like 2 days ago, I couldn't talk, or I had a fever and all this stuff. But in terms of personal health, but if one of the kiddos has a play and work wants me to stay till 7, guess what? Work, I'm going to the play.
You're going to the play. That's it.
Sorry.
Yeah.
And and I've always been that way. It did not matter. And it's like, well, fire me already, I guess. Then I don't know what to tell you. There's lots of jobs and places and spaces that will honor my me and my family and stuff. And I think we're kind of doing a better job on in companies sometimes, depending on the company.
Yes.
Of course. And depending on what you ask for, but you have to put your own foot down sometimes and say, look,
well, yeah,
I need.
This idea of hiding your family, I have an anecdote where I talk about my daughter who works in New York in the city, and just saying, works with so many men who COVID came as a relief to them because now they didn't have to pretend they didn't have families anymore. They could, this one banker she had a meeting with saying, I've got to talk quietly because I just put my toddler down for a nap. And she said, I didn't even know he had a relationship, let alone had kids or anything else, because it was like, if you're serious about work, you pretend you have no other obligations. And this has been especially true for women who are somehow accused of not being serious enough about their careers because they have these terrible things called families that they care about.
Or pregnancy.
Well, pray God forbid.
I've
Don't
seen
say
people,
the word. We'll fire you.
people hide pregnancies and like TV shows and news anchor
crazy.
spots and things like that. I'm like, newsflash, I could have never been pregnant in a million years.
Yeah.
I'm like 5'3" on a big hair.
Well,
net.
and our government,
like
basically treats pregnancy like a disease, as in, no, we're not doing paid parental leave for male or female. That's not, go back to work. Tough if you just had a C-section and you're bleeding and the stitches aren't out, get back to your job. We're not doing anything for you.
So I don't know about, I remember, I've said this before, I just remember being a kid myself, 25 years old, 26 years old, 27, 8, that, and having my first couple kids and thinking, how in the world do you expect me to be in New York with a baby who's 4 months old?
Yes.
You couldn't reconcile that. And I don't know how people do that. For
Do you
me,
think there are more companies these days who are working with you, if it was now, saying, hey, we have this thing where we help parents and we're going to give you some time with your kid? Is it any better?
I mean, I have a sister who's 15 years younger than I am, and they're doing the juggle. They're picking up kids from daycare and staying home and working. It's a juggle. It's a constant shift around. And I'm sure it's gotten better. There's more awareness and so forth. I know there's more intended leave, but it's, for me, I was always like, yeah, you're going to offer that leave, but if I take that for real, what happens to me? Am I really going to have that job? I'm sure that still is there.
Yeah, and somewhere you just note, because I talk to men who say, I can't take paid parental leave for fathers either, because then I'm not taking this seriously. And then, of course, the women are saying, well, if the guys won't even do it, what chance do we have?
That was my thing too. I'm like, if he's not leaving, I'm not leaving. That's that's really what it was.
Yeah.
I remember that. I remember that vividly. If he's not leaving, I'm not leaving. That's what I thought. And I'm like, I'll be back in 2 weeks.
Ernie gave me a note here to remind me of something I want to talk to you about in part 2 of the book, which is the Change Guidebook right here once again. And I make sure that the glare is not on the cover. So that
a pretty cover. I love the cover of this book.
And that we're putting it next to my book cover. There we are.
Look at how beautiful they are.
Yes, they look good.
Yeah, I'm about to do a blog on Best Ever You with a bunch of books, yours included, that I think like recommended reading that I think we should do, and we'll put a bunch of HCI authors in there. And
well, speaking of the Change Guidebook, in part 2, you have a thing, Align Your Truths. Talk about that a little bit.
I was thinking about this a little bit before we went on, because I knew you were going to ask me about the book, and I actually dog-eared the page because I wanted to talk about it a little bit better than. I think writing a book is different than marketing a book and talking about a book. So you know, I think there's different skill sets there, and I've got some.
Well, HCI books, by the way, shout out to HCI, but they're lucky they've got you, because I don't know how many publicists I've talked to who have said that you have. There are some very brilliant authors who have a really hard time verbally communicating. They write. Yeah. And when you take them out of their cave and they blink in the daylight, saying, "Is that?" And that's called the sun. You've never seen it before, come out of your basement. But you're not only presentable, you're so articulate, and you come across as such a lovely person. They're lucky to HCI books.
I love HCI. Yeah, I love it.
Is lucky to have Elizabeth. Anyway, go on and talk about it.
I always think I've got learning to do, but I think you and I talk a lot about truth, and that's exactly what it is. It's just really having that conversation with yourself, a truthful conversation about who you are, what you want. And then I think, for me anyway, with truth, where people fall when they're trying to make change with the whole truth thing is asking for help from other people. Because I think when we ask for help from other people, sometimes we think, oh, I suck.
Yes.
I need help or whatever. And it goes right down there. Whereas it's like, no. I need help. And you've got a skill that helps me learn how to speak
Mhm.
better or write better or talk better or, whatever it
Yes,
is,
sure.
be better. And we don't look at it that way. And so I really wanted to write this from a standpoint of, no, you don't suck.
Yeah.
You don't. Trust me, you don't. Nobody knows everything about everything.
Mm.
And so when you have that conversation with yourself about what you want to change, like, let's say, I know one thing about myself that I'm always like trying to change is weight. So I just am like, never in my head, I'm like,
Yeah.
I always have 20 pounds to lose no matter what I do. And it just is. And whether it's truth or not. But when I go into that mode, I think, okay, well, which expert am I going to reach out to on the Best Ever You network to talk about the push-ups I need to do, or the sit-ups, or the walking, or the whatever it is
Yeah.
to achieve that goal? And so I think that we constantly need each other still. That's the point of truth.
Yeah,
Align
I
your
like that.
truth.
Let me ask you another thing. Last time we were talking about, you can't have time as a given. You can't take time for granted. So time, a point you made very well, I forget how you said it, but something to the effect that time is the only true currency. It's not dollars, it's not money. Time is it. Time is the non-negotiable currency of life. Talk about this concept of yours of time. What did you say? No one
We're not
owes you
entitled to
time.
time.
You're
We
not
are not
entitled
entitled
to
to time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
talk about that again, because I just want to go into that a little more.
Well, I think it goes with truth too, because you can spin I think we're kind of interesting when we lie to ourselves.
Hmm.
Have you ever lied to yourself? Yeah.
All the time.
All the time, and I make a lot of fun of myself too, but that's a
Yeah.
little bit different. But,
As
I
one
think,
does, doesn't
yeah.
everyone?
Yeah. If it's hard, if you can't make fun of yourself, I don't know about it. But I think as the stories in the book illustrate too, we definitely aren't entitled to time. And so don't waste time and really speak your truth. This is not a moment to speak your truth, be your truth, act your truth, all those things, because, I don't know of anybody, like, if you don't want to be at an office, don't be.
Yes.
I don't know of anybody who was like, I know my dad, when he was dying, didn't say, God, I really wished I'd been in the office more.
Yeah.
I think that's a common thing sometimes people say.
Yeah.
But, I wish I would have done this, seen this, spent time with this person. It's a whole list of everything other than working all the time and having a life that's centered around everything, money and work.
Yeah. Which is, by the way, what my book is about.
Yeah. It's a beautiful book. I know. I love your book. Yeah.
But that's the purpose of the book. It was basically, here's this guy who's a grandfather writing a book and telling, hey, if you want to learn one thing from me, please just remember, it's the quality of the human relationships, especially family and children. Speaking of lying to yourself, one of my fun games I play with Nora, who's now just turned 8, who's my youngest granddaughter, that I will be picking up from school again today, and cooking her some salmon to eat and a baked potato, which she likes. I play this game with her where I make bodacious claims and then she cuts me down to size. So she'll get in the car and I'll say, please address me today as Lord of the Universe. And she says, I will not. Or something like that. Aren't I the greatest, whatever. So I play, and she's always, no, she comes right back. But then, she's a good, not just a good lesson in humility, but I think that's one of the positive things about really being involved with children, whether it's your grandchildren or as a teacher or daycare worker or your own kids, because if you have a good enough relationship with children that they can tell you what they're really thinking about what you're saying, all kidding aside, it is like a little bit of a truth serum, because you can have, you could be building your rocket or taking over Twitter or whatever it is. But if you have kids in your life, there's
billions of dollars.
Trillions of dollars, whatever.
Yeah.
But they see you just as you are, and they are going to tell you what they think.
They care how you make them feel. They could care less that you've written a book or who you are, or they don't think you're nearly as cool as you think you are.
No, and you're not. Nobody is.
I texted my kids yesterday. I was so excited to get to the 55-star review mark with the book. It was like a secret goal. I'm just like, really, that's just something I want to do with this book, is just have the foundation be just cool. So I texted the kids, all 4 of them. We have a group chat. And I'm like, guess what, Mom? And they're like, great. Congratulations.
Yeah,
No, they were really happy, but you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Not nearly
sounds
as,
like a cup of coffee. Yeah,
yeah, but they did, they're all like, we helped, we contributed a review.
we did our bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
The second part of your book is also about support, implementation, and acceptance. Let's just go there before we run out of time, because I wanted to talk to you more. This is the problem with doing these conversations with you, Elizabeth.
Go on and on.
Usually
Come on my
usually I
show,
stay
we'll
on
continue.
track, but the problem is this is just way too pleasant. And I get
Come over to my
distracted.
show. We'll have you over on my show. We'll
Okay,
keep
so
going. Yeah, we'll
wait,
go back
we're
and
going to do this support, implementation, and acceptance. We're talking about the Change Guidebook. You're going to have links to this, everybody. You can actually go buy this book and read it instead of being such cheapskates and just trying to figure out what we're talking here. You know,
it's a good price too. It's like $14. And
yes, it's very modest, and yeah,
it's totally affordable.
Yes. So talk about that. The support, implementation, acceptance. Let's go there.
Yeah. Here's the thing. I think this is what a lot of people don't have, that sometimes they're wishing they had. And so if you're one of those people who's like, but wait, you know, I wish I had that person in my life who would help me or whatever. This is a great section of the book for you. It's align your energy, but it's also a good section of a book for someone who wants to engage other people and help them.
Yeah.
So it meets people in the moment either way. But this is really the part about taking action. It's like cranking action up a notch.
Yes.
To engage other people, to mentor other people, and have an impact maybe on other people, yes, for sure, but also the world too.
Yeah.
Because I just think all of that stuff starts right here with us. Just like your grandchildren are going to grow up totally different because they have you every day. They're caring.
Yes. Yeah.
Completely. And I don't think people realize, I think a lot of people think, well, it's not up to me. The world's not up to me. It's up to them and them.
Right.
They don't realize that it starts right here with us and what we do. And it's the tiny things around you that you do that contribute to the greater world.
Yeah.
And I also think that it's the, I don't know how to word this right so you can fix it, but it's like that legacy you leave because you've treated people this way. They're going to grow up and treat their people that way.
Yeah. And not only that, it's kind of genetically imprints. I mean, there's this whole thing, you know, called epigenetics, where they experimented with mice, and bad experiences and good experiences are passed on. And we're not talking about telling anybody. It's actually changes our genetic makeup. And somehow we have this weird memory of trauma that's passed generationally through to people. And then it goes the positive as well. So let me just follow up on that a little bit. You know, what about acceptance, implementation? Okay, now acceptance.
And acceptance of like who you are and so forth. You mean that, acceptance is a really big thing. But you know, I'm wishy-washy on acceptance, because there was a big debate, like if I should put acceptance as the first step of change. I'm like, no, we've got to assess, because sometimes it's the not accepting things that changes. So I'm wishy-washy with the word acceptance. I think, you've got to accept the things we cannot change and all those things. There's definite moments like of acceptance of yes, this has happened, or, you know, there's a lot of acceptance within change, but there's also things that we don't accept, that are the reason why we need to change. So acceptance is funny for me. I've got that kind of explained in the book a little bit better too. That's not my favorite word, is acceptance.
Well, you know, it ties into something else, because your book is called the Change Guidebook, which I don't want to go fancy here, but the Greek for repentance is metanoia, and metanoia does not mean I'm sorry. You know, when we think of someone repenting, we think of a sort of an act of contrition, of saying I'm sorry. Repentance actually, in the metanoia concept, means change.
Yeah.
That's what repentance is. Repentance is not being sorry. It's actually changing behavior. So you were saying you don't like,
I mean, I've got the word, no.
You don't like disruption. I don't either. But here's one I don't like in stuff. I don't like the way this mantra of you need to forgive yourself is thrown around, because really, you know, if one is forgiving oneself without changing, that's not forgiving yourself. That's just simply accepting the way things are as if you can never change them. So, you know, the motivate, we have the capacity for human guilt is built in genetically as an evolutionary survival mechanism. That's why you and me are talking today, because somebody felt bad about killing our ancestors and didn't.
Yeah, right.
Because they felt guilty about it. They had done that. And it's like, now we're getting Elizabeth's great somebody. I'm not going to, spear her for lunch. We're going to let her go because I felt bad the last time I did it. It's a survival mechanism.
Right.
So, if you put this in spiritual, religious terms of traditional, say, Christianity or Judaism, the change guidebook would be the repentance guidebook, which is the other word, which is basically, rather than just I'm sorry, it's like I am trying to be a different person and do this differently. Do you want to just talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, and I think that's it. Well, it's two things. It's if something has happened to you and you kind of are forced to be a different person in a way,
Mm-hmm.
You've got an unforeseen circumstance, but also if you do want to be a different person, let's say you want to stop drinking, or you want to stop smoking, or you want to stop doing things. This is a wonderful book to meet you in that moment and help you move forward. It's done a lot of that. And I was thinking of acceptance. The one thing about acceptance is that you have to take responsibility for yourself.
Right, there you are.
That is the huge part of acceptance.
Which is what AA and a lot of people who've helped a lot of people have said is the basis of everything they do is taking responsibility.
For everything you say and do and write and so forth. And that's a tall order for people sometimes, because we love to blame and shame and all that good stuff. So it's not my problem.
Which is why, by the way, I don't like this concept as a standalone thing about forgive yourself, because, hey, that's not the issue here. Do you want to change anything? That seems to me to be the bottom line. I mean, am I wrong on that?
No, I don't think so. And I think that one of the things I write about in this chapter is patience, and back to that time management thing and so forth. Because I think that's part of, I think for some reason, I don't know exactly why. I'm still processing some of my own thoughts here. Yeah. So I'll write things and I'll think about it and so forth. But I really think that patience, there's a lot of things that are best virtues, but I think patience is one of them. And that acceptance that we aren't entitled to time. And so what am I going to do with my time? And I'm going to accept responsibility for myself and the time I have. Yes. And what am I going to accept responsibility for? Okay, well, I'm going to align my behavior, my goals, my dreams, my everything with my action. Huge into the walk your talk kind of thing. And I think part of that rests in having the patience with oneself and other people around us to allow space for that. So there's some acceptance of, I love the patience part. I talk a lot about patience and time management, and just about everything I do is part of success.
And I love the time. I like this idea of time being something you never owed. I like that you're not entitled to time. In that light of that, not being entitled to time, how do you go to this part 3 of align your energy? Just give me.
And I was just going to say, I think patience and acceptance are like little twins. So if you read about that in the book, but so the next section of the book is energy.
Align your energy.
Yeah, align your. It's basically align your energy, and that's again finding the people who you can help impact, mentor, and so forth. Or if you need that, finding those people to help you along so that you can achieve what you're trying to achieve. And
my suggestion for your new business, by the way, after you run out of steam on your magazine or you want to try something, I think you should open a business called Rent a Muse. Rent a Muse.
Rent a Muse?
Yeah, Rent a Muse.
Rent a Muse.
You make a good muse. You inspire things. So, we can do the Elizabeth Rent a Muse.
Rent a Muse, yeah.
Other people to be muses.
Yeah, I have those people too. When I came across you in the book promotion that you were doing, I'm like, oh, he is so inspiring. Some people are kind of like that, but I take that as a huge compliment. Thank you very much.
Well, maybe we could do
ever said that to me before.
Yeah, you can be a muse. It'll be like, hey, for a small fee, you can.
I called a rainmaker once. I'm like, I don't know.
That's it. Like, come out, she'll find water on your property, or she'll help you. She'll inspire your next book. But
I think that there's a couple words that are forgotten that people forget to use over and over and over again. I see it all the time, and in action also. Thank you. I don't think you can ever use the words thank you enough. I also don't think you can ever write enough handwritten thank you notes.
Yes,
I
I
think
like
the
that.
art of handwriting and handwritten thank you notes is lost.
It's a big
I don't
deal.
know where it is. They don't even teach, did you know that they don't even teach handwriting in grade schools anymore in a lot of places? So
Yeah.
if you want your grandkids to learn how to write cursive, you have to teach it.
Yes. Which they're all writing, by the way, because Nora goes to a charter Montessori school, and they take away all the tablets and stuff, and they teach her to write. And she loves cursive. You know, she sits there laboriously doing it.
Perfect. Yeah, because I have one kid who can't sign his name. We worked on it when he was home from college. I'm like,
I never want to throw out all the little lists or notes that my wife leaves me, because she learned her penmanship in a little Roman Catholic school in the 1950s.
oh, cool.
And, you know, the one thing the nuns taught you to do is how to write nicely. So her notes are also beautifully written. That is, it's basically, no, I can't throw away that. Yes, it's just broccoli and, you know, whatever it else, but it's so beautifully written out that it's, no, we have to keep it. So, you know, we're going to, my children are going to have to do a lot of clearing out, because I have such sentiment about all the little notes Jeannie's written me. They're all stuffed away and like, these are just grocery lists. Yeah, but look at the writing.
Yep. Yep. It's beautiful.
So let me, before I wrap up here on this one, we'll do this again, but I want to end, and then whatever you were going to say will fit in with this. I want to end by saying there has to be something that's frustrating you now, as in, like, I wish you'd asked me about this. What is that? What should have I asked you about?
Well, nothing's frustrating, but I did have a thought.
Yes.
To leave something maybe helpful for people to noodle on. And I didn't write this in the book, but I'm thinking, gosh darn it, I should have. And that's that to create, to change, you have to create a routine. And to change, you also probably have to break a routine.
Yes.
Kind of think about that a little bit. You like to change, you have to create a habit or routine. And to change, you also have to break a habit or routine.
Yeah.
I'm not sure people think about that a lot, about habits and routines with respect to change. The book kind of guides people to that in some respects.
Yes.
You know, in some of the things that are in here, but just remember, you have to, you know, I was just thinking about change, and I'm like, oh yeah, you gotta create and break.
Yeah. And I think that applies to creative work as well. You know, people talk to me about being a writer, and I've written a lot of books, and how do you fit it in with childcare? Well, I get up an hour earlier. That's how I do it. I mean, I made a new routine, and then it works. But if you were trying to fit it all together, refusing to make any changes, that's a tiny, stupid example, but it's an example.
But yeah, but I think people get stuck there. Like I'm thinking of my mom right now, and her car is broken down, and she's a little bit older and things like that. And she's like, well, what do I do? I can't really lease. I can't really buy. I can't really do this. She's got a long list of can'ts. And I annoyingly said, we got to change something. She's like, oh God.
Yeah.
You know? And so, you know, even talking to my mom about changes.
See, you're the kid. You're the kid. And
oh,
so
totally.
you're the truth serum, like I said.
Yeah.
You know, it's like your mom and so forth. And okay, but you're still her child, so you're her truth serum.
And I treat her like she's my mother, and not like I'm walk all over my own mom or anything like that. I'd never do that. So there's respect involved.
Yeah, but I mean, Bill, it's good. You got to have somebody in your life
that
cuts to the chase.
I think we all do. Yeah. And like, we're going to have to change something, because that's not going to work. She totaled her car on ice she pulled into my sister's driveway funky, and it's just a change nobody wanted. And we have those moments. And I've just been thinking a lot about my mom. She's 76 years old, and my dad has passed. And it's like, well, you know, I think a lot of us are dealing with aging parents, and what do we do? What changes do we make that are respectful and honor how cool your mom is and all these things? And it makes you sort of sad in a way to see something like that happen. And I'm like getting ready to ship our van to her, so she has a van.
Well, a lot of people that I'm talking to on these interviews are finding, you know, we talk about childcare because of my experience with my grandchildren, but then a lot of people all of a sudden, like Mim Semp, who was on with me the other day, runs a whole caregiving operation where people can put down facts online about their parents and so on. So should someone have dementia or whatever, they have all this information ready, planning ahead a little bit. And so many people of your age are already into caregiving for an elderly parent now.
Yeah.
I mean, and a little older than you, even more so. So it's like the sandwich generation. There's kids and there's their children, but then there's this elderly generation going along, living longer and longer. So part of your change guidebook has to be able to apply to how to change our lives so that we become really good caregivers of an older generation as well.
Yeah, and I do. I talk a lot about my dad and mom in this book and the family and so forth, because there's a lot of changes that happen. And if you don't think about some of them in advance, they creep up on you and you're in react mode instead of planning mode. And it's tricky. So we're in a little bit of a react mode right now. And with changes that we didn't ask for, and we're trying to maneuver through things. But I think it's everybody's life is like that. Maybe not this specific circumstance, but we all have change that we're dealing with. And how are we going to do that? Are we going to dig our heels in and not change, or are we going to approach it? I know my mom was like, yeah. I'm like, okay, so we're going to be positive about this. What are we going to do? And I think a lot of people go at change with trying to fix and solve. And sometimes things aren't immediately fixed or solved. They drag on a little bit, or they carry on a little bit. But again, the book addresses that too. So
So let me wrap up and just say, we have been talking In Conversation with Frank Schaeffer with my friend Elizabeth Hamilton-Guarino, and hers is the Change Guidebook: How to Align Your Heart, Truths, and Energy to Find Success in All Areas of Your Life. And by the way, I have exactly the same information here from Ernie, and I have a bigger screen here where I can read it, but this one I would have to put my glasses on. And so then I'm reading it from the book.
Yeah, I am too.
But anyway,
I have bifocal contacts on, so we're good.
Yes, that's it. I should do that. You run a thing called, and you're the founder of the Best Ever You Network, and people can find out all about that by just clicking on all the links that Ernie will put up everywhere. And I just want to thank you again for a great conversation. And I hope these two conversations, part 1 and 2, I didn't rewatch the first bit because I didn't want to lose the freshness of this one. We may have overlapped a little bit, but I think, tell me, didn't we do some new things here, Elizabeth?
Oh, definitely. And I think we sparked conversation.
Yeah, I was going to try to be more disciplined and actually find out more about the book and less just chat.
People can read, but I'd love people to comment. I think we sparked really good conversation points, and you don't have to agree with everything we said. You can disagree or whatever. But there's good conversation, and I think that's kind of what it's all about.
And by the way, one recommendation about Elizabeth's book, I think it's a good book club book. So for those of you who do book groups, I know Elizabeth's available like I am to do book group stuff. So if you get in touch with her through us, I'm sure you will.
That's a dream, actually. That's a dream of mine, is to do book club book. I've not had that happen yet. And I think that'd be the coolest thing.
Well, I define a book club as anybody with a friend. I'll call you a book club if there's 2 of you. And even if you're sharing one copy of the book, you stingy whatever, buy your own copies. Okay. Well, listen, much love. And thank you, Elizabeth. This was a great session again. No more bronchitis for a while. Good luck with the magazine.
Yes, which you'll be part of course.
Yes, I will. Thank you. Okay.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Frank.
Bye.
Thank you, EJ. Bye.